Okay. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I wrote this down in my notes on my phone so I can get this right. So this story was won by Christelle, who I met at the Discworld convention, and then she came to my event in London. This was in the charity auction, which the proceeds of that went to the Orangutan Foundation and the Springboard for Children. So first of all, thank you, Crystal. I'm very flattered when anyone is like, "Oh, I'm going to pay a lot of money for a thing that you do," but it's for charity too, and it's for a really good cause. So that's extra awful. So, however, this video is actually I've never. So it's for Danielle. Danielle is the lovely woman who made me the Pounce Faithful, the little cat creature. Cat creature, what? I know what words are. I swear I write words. Aruva Drill. I think I said your Twitter name correctly. It's ERUVADHRIL. That is also their Tumblr username as well. So this is for you, from your friend Crystal. Australian Discworld Convention. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it happen. So this is a Terry Pratchett story. It's not a Discworld one. I don't know. It's just called Turntables of the Night. Apparently written in 1989. So I'm going to read that for her. So, look, Constable. What I don't understand is, surely he wouldn't be into blues, because that was Wayne's life for you, a blues single. I mean, if people were music, Wayne would be like one of those scratchy old numbers, re-recorded about 100 times from the original phonograph cylinder or whatever, with some old guy with a name like Deaf Orange Robinson standing knee-deep in the Mississippi and moaning through his nose. You think he'd be more into heavy metal or Meatloaf or someone, but I suppose he's into everyone. Eventually. What? Yeah, that's my van with Hellfire Disco painted on it. Wayne can't drive, you see. He's just not interested in anything like that. I remember when I got my first car and we went on holiday and I did the driving and, also the repairing, and Wayne worked the radio, trying to keep the pirate stations tuned in. He didn't really care where we went as long as it was on high ground and he could get Caroline or London or whatever. I didn't care where we went so long as we went. I was always more into cars than music. Until now, I think. I don't think I ever want to drive a car again. I'd keep wondering who'd suddenly turn up in the passenger seat. Sorry, so yeah, the disco. Well, the deal was that I supplied the van, we split the cost of the gear, and Wayne supplied the records. It was really my idea. I mean, it seemed a pretty good bet. Wayne lives with his mom, but they're down to 2 rooms now because of the record collection. Lots of people collect records, but I reckon Wayne really wanted, past tense, oh no, to own every one that was ever made. His idea of a fun outing was going to some old store in some old town and rummaging through the stock, coming out with something by someone with a name like Sid Sputnik and the Spaceman. But the funny thing was, you'd get back to his room and he'd go to a shelf and push all the records aside, and there'd be this neat brown envelope with the name and date on it and everything. Waiting. Also, I'm that person. I mean, my record collection is not as huge as it once was. I still have a few hundred of them. I had to sell some for money and because they're heavy. I couldn't carry them all. That's me though. Or he'd get me to drive him all the way to Preston or somewhere to find some guy who's a self-employed plumber now, but maybe back in 1961, called himself Ronnie Sequin and made it to number 152 in the charts, just to see if he'd got a spare copy of his one record, which was really so naff you couldn't even find it in the specialist stores. Wayne was the kind of collector who couldn't bear a hole in his collection. Oh, God, I know that feeling, too. It was almost religious, really. He could out-talk John Peel in any case, but the records he knew about were the ones he hadn't got. He'd wait years to get some practically demo disc from a punk group who probably died of safety pin tetanus. Bless that line. But by the time he got his hands on it, he'd be able to recite everything down to the name of the cleaning lady who scrubbed out the studio afterwards. But like I said, a collector. For the record, get it, record? Hey, I made a pun in a Pratchett video. I don't know that I'm that bad. I'm pretty bad. I do like having to complete everything. There's definitely an AFI record where I have, I think, 7 versions of the same record because all of them were different pressings. I also have an extremely rare Metallica record, and Justice for All is my favorite Metallica record. And I have a rare Italian, I want to say it's Italian, import that was printed just for a radio station. And the last time I looked it up on eBay, it was worth like $4,000. Because there's only 3 of them in the world, and I bought it at a record store that sold it to me for $30. And they were like, $30 is expensive for a record, and it was right before they did all the Metallica remasters and put everything out on the 180-gram vinyl. I can't believe I'm nerding this up in here. Okay, so I thought, what more do you need to run a disco? Well, basically just about everything which Wayne hadn't got. Looks, clothes, common sense, some kind of idea about electric wiring, and the ability to rab it on like a Pratt. like I just did. But at the time, we didn't look at it like that, so I flogged the Capri and bought the van and got it nearly professionally resprayed. You can only see the words Midland Electricity Board on it if you know where to look. I wanted it to look like the van in the A-Team, except where theirs can jump 4 cars and still hair off down the road, mine has trouble with rain covers. Yes, I've talked to the other officer about the tax and insurance and MOT. Sorry, Sergeant. Don't worry about it. I won't be driving a car ever again. Never. What? We bought a load of amplifiers and stuff off Ian Curtis. No, you can't put Ian Curtis in this. Over in Warecliff, because he was getting married and Tracy wanted him at home of a night, bunged some cards in newsagent windows and waited. Well, people didn't exactly fall over themselves to give us gigs on account of people not really catching on to Wayne's style. You don't have to be a verbal genius to be a jock. People just expect you to say, hey, and wow, and get down and boogie and stuff. Given a Farscape episode I watched, that's particularly funny. It doesn't actually matter if you sound like a pillock. It just helps them feel superior. What they don't want when they're getting all drunk after the wedding or whatever, is for someone to stand there with his eyes flashing worse than the light, saying things like, there's a rather interesting story attached to this record. Funny thing is, though, is that after a while we started to get popular in a weird word-of-mouth kind of way. What started it, I reckon, was my sister Beryl's wedding anniversary. Beryl the troll? Just kidding. She's older than me, you understand. It turned out that Wayne had brought along just about every record ever pressed for about a year before they got married. Not just the top 10 either. The guests were all around the same age, and pretty soon the room was so full of nostalgia you could hardly move. Wayne just hotwired all their ignitions and took them for a joyride down memory motorway. After that, we started getting dates from what you might call the more older types. You know, not exactly kids, but bits haven't started falling off yet. We were a sort of specialty disco. At the breaks, people would come up to him to chat about this great number they recalled from way back or whenever, and it would turn out that Wayne would always have it in the van. If they'd heard it, he'd have it. Chances are he'd have it even if they hadn't heard of it. Because you could say this about Wayne, he was a true collector. He didn't worry whether the stuff was actually good or not. It just had to exist. He didn't put it like that, of course. He'd say there was always something unique about every record. You might think that this is a lot of crap, but he was a man who got just about everything ever made over the last 40 years, and he really believed there was something special about each one. Okay, well, I love this human being so much. He sat up there all through the night, in his room lined with brown envelopes, and played them one by one. Records that had been forgotten even by the people who made them. I'll swear he loved them all. Man after my own heart. Music is my everything. If y'all think my excitement for books is something, don't even get me talking about music. I'm going to nerd out about music so much. Okay, anyway. Yes, alright, but you've got to know about him to understand what happened next. Oh no. We were booked for this Halloween dance. You could tell it was Halloween because all the little bastards running around the streets shouting trick-or-treat and threatening you with milk bottles. Trick-or-treat. He sorted out lots of Monster Mash type records. Those records are so good. Terrible, but amazing. No, they're not terrible, actually. No. He looked pretty awful, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I mean, he always looked awful. It was his normal look. It came from spending years indoors listening to records. Plus, he had his bad heart and asthma and everything. The dance was at... Okay, you know all that. A Halloween dance to raise money for a church hall. Wayne said that was a big joke, but he didn't say why. I expect it was some clever reason. He was always good at that sort of thing, knowing little details that other people didn't know. Excuse me, it used to get him hit a lot at school, except when I was around. He was the kind of skinny boy who had his glasses held together with elastoplast. Oh my God. I used duct tape, and then I would color it black. Glasses. I don't think I ever saw him raise a finger to anybody, only that time when Grebo Greaves broke a record Wayne had brought to some school disco, and 4 of us had to pull Wayne off him and prise the iron bar out his fingers, and there was a police and ambulance and everything. Anyway, I let Wayne set everything up, which was one big mistake, but he wanted to do it, and I went and sat down by what they called the bar, i.e. a couple of trestle tables with a cloth on it. No, I didn't drink anything. Well, maybe 1 cup of the punch, and that was all fruit juice. All right, 2 cups. But I know what I heard, and I'm absolutely certain about what I saw. I think. What is this? You get the same old bunch at these kind of gigs. There's the organizer and a few members of the community, some lads from the village who sort of drifted in, because there wasn't much on the box except snooker. Everyone wore a mask but hadn't made an effort with the rest of the clothes, so it looked as though Frankenstein and company had all gone shopping in Marks and Sparks. There were Scouts posters on the wall, and those special kinds of village hall radiators that suck the heat in. It smelled of tennis shoes. Just to sort of set the seal on it as one of the hot spots of the world, there was a little mirror ball spinning up in the rafters. Half the little mirrors had fallen off. All right, maybe 3 cups. But it had bits of apple floating in it. Nothing serious has bits of apple floating in it. Oh my god. Was it sangria? Wayne started with a few hot numbers to get them stomping. I'm speaking metaphorically here, you understand? None of his boogie on down stuff. All you could hear was people not being as young as they used to be. Now, I've already said Wayne wasn't exactly cut out for the business, and that night, last night, he was worse than usual. He kept mumbling, staring at the dancers. He mixed the records up. He even scratched one. Accidentally, I mean. The only time I've ever seen Wayne really angry, apart from the Grebo business, was when scratch music came in. It would have been very bad manners to cut in, so at the first break I went up to him, and let me tell you, he was sweating so much it was dropping onto the mixer. "It's that bloke on the floor," he said, "the one in the flares." "Methuselah?" I said. "Don't muck about. The black..." For the record, I just said this in the other video I just made. That sound is the air pressure running through the old vents. There used to be heating in this place that doesn't work. And the air pressure from coming in the very windy window is pulling the grate back and forth, and there's nothing I can do. So there's not a ghost in this bedroom. Anyway, the black silk suit with the rhinestones. He's been doing John Travolta impersonations all night. Come on, you must have noticed. Platform soles. Got a silver medallion as big as a plate. Skull mask. He was over by the door. I hadn't seen anyone like that. Well, you'd remember, wouldn't you? Wayne's face was frozen with fear. You must have. So what, anyway? Well, he keeps staring at me. I patted his arm. Impressed by your technique, old son, I said. I took a look around the hall. Most people were milling around the punch now, the rascals. Wayne grabbed my arm. Don't go away. What? I was just going out for some fresh air. Don't. He pulled himself together. Don't go. Hang around. Please. What's up with you? Please, John, he keeps looking at me in a funny way. He looked really frightened. I gave in. Okay, but point him out next time. I let him get on with things while I tried to neaten up the towering mess of plugs and adapters that was Wayne's usual contribution to electrical safety. If you've got the kind of gear we've got, had, you can spend hours working on it. I mean, do you know how many different kinds of connectors? All right. In the middle of the next number, Wayne hauled me back to the decks. There. See him? Right in the middle. Well, there wasn't. There was a couple of girls dancing with each other, and everyone else were just couples who were just trying to who were trying to pretend the 70s hadn't happened. Any rhinestone cowboys in that lot would have stood out like a strawberry in an Irish stew. I could see that some tact and diplomacy were called for at this point. Wayne, I said, I reckon you're several coupons short of a toaster. You can't see him, can you? Well, no, but since he mentioned it, I could see this space. There was this patch of floor around the middle of the hall which everyone was keeping clear of, except that they weren't avoiding it. You see, they just didn't happen to be moving into it. It was just sort of accidentally there. And it stayed there. It moved around a bit, but it never disappeared. All right, I know a patch of floor can't move around. Just take my word for it. This one did. The record was ending, but Wayne was still in control enough to have another one spinning. He faded it up, a bit of an oldie that they'd all know. Is it still there? He said, staring down at a tile desk. It's a bit closer, I said. Perhaps it's after a spot prize. I want to live forever. Let's right. Be a great help. People will see me cry. There were quite a few more people down there now, but the empty patch was still moving around, all right, was being avoided among the dancers. I went and stood in it. It was cold. What the shit? It said, "Good evening." The voice came from all around me, and everything seemed to slow down. The dancers were just statues in a kind of black fog, the music a low rumble. Where are you? Behind you. By the way, it reminds me of the way, because it's in all caps, it reminds me of death. It's hard not to think of that. Is it death? Oh my god. Now, at a time like this, the impulse is to turn around, but you'd be amazed at how good I was at resisting it. You've been frightening to my friend. I'm sorry, you've been frightening my friend, I said. I did not intend to. Push off. That doesn't work, I am afraid. I did turn around then. He was about 7 feet tall in, yes, his platform shoes. And yes, he wore flares, but somehow you'd expect that. Wayne had said they were black, but that wasn't true. They weren't any color at all. They were simply closed-shaped holes into somewhere else. Black would have looked blinding white by comparison. He did look a bit like John Travolta from the waist down, but only if you buried John Travolta for about 3 months. It really was a skull mask. You could see the string. Come here often, do you? I am always around. Can't say I've noticed you, and I would have done. You don't meet many 7-foot, 7-stone people every day, especially ones that walked as though they think about every muscle movement in advance and acted as though they were alive and dead at the same time, like Cliff Richard. Okay, let me make another video and keep reading. What the hell is this?